organization or her group does and how they operate and the types of work that they do. So Jane?
Okay. Well, it's great to see some new faces. And I just want to say voter empowerment for me is really sort of core to the League, core to its mission and its values. You know, the League really evolved with women getting the vote. And, you know, as we say in many of our forums, don't just be a voter, be an informed voter. So I see voter empowerment being about both encouraging people to vote, but also to help inform them. And I am a co-chair of the Voter Empowerment Committee, along with Fran Carrillo, who may be able to drop in, but she's got a busy work schedule. And then we have three of our chief lieutenants for voter empowerment here who will each speak, and that's Jeannie Widener and Julianne C. and Vicki Riggs. But I must say the League's voter empowerment team is pretty terrific. And given the need to adjust with COVID, I think the League did a pretty impressive job last fall. So the Voter Empowerment Committee is most active when there is an actual election. So that 3 or 4 month period before the November election, we were in high gear. And now it's a little bit quieter, but then other elections come up. So right now there's a vote about the 79th Assembly seat for Shirley Weber's. So we pulled together a candidates forum for that. And so, you know, there's a lot going on in between elections. And I have to say that, again, with COVID, some of our routine going out, tabling and, you know, trying to outreach has taken a slightly different form about voter registration. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. And so Jeannie, is that okay? I just
Absolutely.
have to click.
Do you have your share screen down at the bottom there?
Okay, so I'm learning about technology here, so you'll all have to bear with me. Okay, can everybody see this screen? See my screen now?
We sure can.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, great. So this is actually a presentation we gave over the summer when we were engaging volunteers for the November election. And I love the photo because it's just our wonderful diverse group here. So, you know, the voter empowerment is very much our nonpartisan part of the League. You know, the League does advocacy around issues that we've studied, et cetera, but this is the League in its completely nonpartisan hat. And I think in many ways, this is the thing that many people think the League is core. So our core elements are getting out the vote, voter registration, the candidates forum, Speakers Bureau, Voters Edge, which we're going to go into in more detail. But we really, there are a lot of subtopics within each one of those. So I think what I'm going to do is move us right along to Julianne. Are you ready to jump in? And I'll move us to Voters Edge, which is a really core part of our educational work. And by the way, if any of you would be interested in working on Voters Edge around the 2022 election, it's not too early to raise your hand. So Julianne, can you give us a little speech on this?
Can I? Sure. So Voters Edge is the name of the online election guide of the League of Women Voters, and it is a joint project with another nonprofit called MapLight. And MapLight was concerned with following the money. So for the state and federal candidates, the MapLight presents a little pie chart of where the money is coming from to support a particular candidate or a state ballot measure. And I find that very informative. And you'll notice for the federal offices in particular, a lot of the money that comes to support candidates comes from out of state and it's not local. And so It's good to be aware of where a candidate's loyalties might be. They might not always be with the constituents. That's important to know. We also support local candidates. Of course, the congressional candidates and the presidential candidates, all that good stuff, right down to local school boards, community planning districts. There are lots of water and fire protection boards in various parts of the county. And I just really enjoy working with those candidates and helping them to use Voter's Edge to communicate with voters. So it's good for the voters and it's also good for the candidates. And they really appreciate this service because it's free and they can present their qualifications and priorities. And the voters can either plug in their address and see just the candidates on their ballot, or they can search by the county and see everybody on the ballot. And it's really, really a joy and fun. And I also, in addition to having the candidates information there, we also have information on the state and local ballot measures, which sometimes is very difficult to find. And as with the local candidate contests, sometimes there's no newspaper coverage. You have to either resort to Googling and hope they have a website up, or on Voter's Edge, we invite everybody to participate. So that's sort of one-stop shopping. So you can compare the candidates there. And currently we're supporting the special election for the 79th California Assembly District. So there will be a primary election, which is April 4th, and then the top two finishes there will be in the general election. And we present the information that the candidates have submitted, and also we try to put in news coverage, various online forums videos. So we have video of the candidate forum that our league just sponsored last week on the 10th. And also Voice of San Diego had one. And I'm in the process of getting up the San Diego Union Tribune's interviews of each candidate. So I really enjoy it and it's a lot of fun. And if you'd like to hear more, let me know.
I just want to say what an incredible job Julianne does. And I worked with her a little last fall. And, if any of you is interested, what's good is you can do it in your free time. So if you've got a job, have any of you used the Voter's Edge? I was just curious.
Oh, yeah.
I think, because I think then you see it, and all the work that goes into getting solid information. That's Julianne and her team. So I think it's an incredible service that the league does, and it has so much in-depth information that I'm proud of it, certainly. Are there any questions at this juncture that people would like to jump in? We'll have plenty of question time. So
I have a
sorry about my cursor. I'm going to now move us along to the voter registration slide. And this is, so Fran Carrillo is the smiling lady in the red sweater on the upper right. And she has been a great force behind whole voter registration and empowerment effort. And then to her left is Jenny Avena, who also has just been so core. So, traditionally we would have rallies and do all kinds of tabling for voter registration. But this year, what we did was to train a whole team of people to register voters and then send them out in their communities to do whatever they felt they could do. And there's so much that's online now, as well as, the voter registration process is predominantly online. But I wanted to tell you a little bit. I was incredibly impressed. This was my first real election in San Diego this past fall. But with the relationship that voter empowerment has with the San Diego Registrar of Voters, the registrar really depends on the league, and you know, sends people to us on the day of the election. The league's, sorry, I've got my text is on. On the day of the election, when people who are disabled or are having problems with their casting their ballots, we get called, and we had a whole team of people who actually went to people's homes this fall and helped them with their ballots. It was, you know, really impressive is all I can say. So the Get Out the Vote, GOTV, in case you don't know, is Get Out the Vote events. So one of the things that we did do this year was that we sent out postcards to voters in precincts in San Diego where there has been very low voter turnout. And this was a good project because it was something people who, you know, had to be at home because of COVID could do. And we really had a very enthusiastic response on that. There's a couple of other things about voter election day that I do want to mention. One of the things that became a big topic this fall was voter protection. And I think I hadn't really heard that term before this fall, but this was wanting to be sure that people who voted weren't intimidated in any way. And one of the things that several of us did was get trained by Common Cause, or some people got trained by the ACLU to go and work at polling places to be sure that the vote was done properly. And I thought there was a very impressive effort to be sure that there were essentially watchdogs in all polling locations. Additionally, Common Cause trained people, and this is something, especially if you're a computer person, they trained people to observe social media, to look for both misinformation and disinformation. And I hadn't known the difference between misinformation and disinformation, but misinformation is inadvertent misinformation. Disinformation is actually purposeful. So they had teams of people, and this was across the country, but this was also true in California, who would be assigned to look at various social media and report what was disinformation. So I thought that was an interesting new development. So if any of you would be interested in that going forward, you know, those are some of the things we're paying attention to. So I think next on the list is candidate forums, and we have Vicki Riggs, who's going to speak on that.
Yes, we will. Candidate forums is one of the most known things that the league does, one of the most known in public arenas that we are exposing the public to our mission. And our mission is to let everybody have an equal and fair voice. And how we do that in a candidate forum is we don't call it a debate because we don't have the time or opportunity. We cannot figure out a really fair way for everybody to have the same amount of time if they get to challenge the other candidates and then have a rebuttal. So we don't allow for rebuttals. But what we do is, in the way that we've done it in Zoom, is we've set up our system to be broken up into like 3 basic different parts. And the part that I primarily chair with my co-chair, Kim, I reach out to the candidates and to what now we're doing co-sponsors. So this going forward, after our first season, we're hosting as much as we can a candidate forum and inviting co-sponsor groups. And a co-sponsor group might be your local community council. I'm in Serra Mesa, so the Serra Mesa Community Council and the Women's March and the Chula Vista PTA Council of PTA people in Chula Vista were co-sponsors with our last forum for the 79th election coming up. So what we do is we get them all on board and get the structure organized, let them know what's coming, how to log on. We give them log on. Then Kim on the tech side, our Zoom account to do this in a way that we present the candidates and the people have a chance to ask questions doesn't come through our Zoom. Kim and her family actually created a program where they're allowed to submit questions. Then the volunteers is the third component, and the volunteers consist of the timer. We have an electronic timer that goes into one of the little boxes on the screen, along with the faces of the candidates and the moderator, and the question screeners, and then of course we have a moderator. The question screening, like I mentioned before, has a technical way of doing it online. In the old days, we would be in a room, we would hand out little 3x5 cards, people would write it down, and we would take that up to the question screeners, and they would sort through the questions and select the ones to send to the moderator. But since we're all in 20 different locations, what we do is we have a way of people to submit questions in advance online, and then during the forum too, they can submit questions. So it's a really great system, and going forward, I think this is going to be a real asset for us. To do all those parts, we do have training programs. We get together and we walk people through the structure of forums and their role and how they would do it, and then we practice. Like the timer would get to practice how to use the timer on her computer compared to holding up flashcards. And then the question screeners, of course, we would do that too. The question screening part of it is if you really want to learn about government and the forms of government, candidate forums is a really great opportunity. And the questions that come in, we go through those and think of the issues that we would want that person that was representing that district to be able to act on and be knowledgeable of, and we want to hear their answers for how they would handle homelessness and transportation and if it's in the school industry, how they would handle the situation if we're doing everything remote learning, and when can we get back in school. So that part of the candidate forums is not only stimulating, but it's educational and informative. And then especially if it's your district, then you get to learn. The last forum that we're doing was my district, so I was listening intently on their answers to see where they stood on the different issues. And it may sound like that you turn on your Zoom and you run the program, but that it's a lot more exciting than that. It's kind of like the Wild West, because with technology, we had for Donna, her sound kept going up and down one time, and she couldn't get it in, and we figured out later that was a setting on her Zoom account that we needed to address. And so and then Janelle went off, her sound totally went off, and she couldn't, it took her a while to get back on. And the candidates were so wonderful. They started just kind of, going along and moving forward and answering the questions and taking turns. They knew the routine by then. And so that was a lot of fun. One time we had we only had two candidates, and one of the candidates was held up in a city council meeting. He was an active city councilman and was held up in a meeting that was running long and was very important. In that case, we had to pull out. We cannot hold a forum if there's only one candidate that would that would leave us looking like we are championing for that personal candidate. And so we had to completely pull out of that form. But so yeah, it's you have to be quick on your feet and enjoy it all the way along. So it's a really good. A lot of people say they started with candidate forums. That was one of the first places that they volunteered to get their feet wet and to participate. And we need a big volunteer base, because when the election season comes, and when it's a full election season, with all of the forums that we do, we need a good stable, if you will, of candidates, of volunteers to help us, because people's schedules they're not always 4 people aren't always available for 20 forums during the season. So that's what we do, and we love doing it.
And I'll add that, you know, I do think whether you can be a question screener is a good way to start, because you get teamed up with a more experienced one. And I'm going to, once I stop screen sharing, put the voter empowerment email in the chat. And if anybody would like to volunteer or just chat some more about all this, we'll get back to you. So, okay. Yeah. On to our Speakers Bureau, which Jeannie Widener has been just a complete pro about organizing this. So Jeannie, are you ready to speak to us on this?
I am, and unfortunately, it looks like I cannot spotlight myself because I'm host of this meeting. So I hope all of you can
Oh,
see
no.
me. Let me take the spotlight off of you, Jane, and see if that makes a difference.
I find if I go to you know, the grid video, I can see you.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. There
And
we
that
go.
may be more important than seeing the slide.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But it looks like I'm showing up now on side by side. I think each of you can change your view as you like for this Zoom meeting. But the Speakers Bureau is mostly known for its pros and cons, for the proposition talks that we give every year before each election, where we go out into the community and explain both sides of each particular proposition that's on the ballot, from a very nonpartisan and educational point of view. And we had we had over 70 prop talks this last election season. Most of them, the great majority of them, in fact, all but about a half a dozen, were conducted over Zoom virtually, just like we've been doing all of our meetings and what most organizations have been doing in this last year. And this year we're pivoting to include and emphasize some more special request talks among the community. So we're going to be doing some marketing and letting people know that the League is definitely available to educate their organization members, their club members, on topics that are of interested in of issues that we are either proposing or just general voting issues. So some of the special request talks that we already have available include talking about women's voting, voting rights, the Electoral College, making democracy work. And we're also, one of the other topics we would also are seriously considering including is those on voter fraud versus voter suppression, which is a hot topic, of course, in the nation, not so much an issue here in California as both of those are in other areas of the country. And so we welcome anybody. We always need, just like Vicki was saying, we can always use volunteers for the Speakers Bureau. If you feel comfortable in front of an audience, many of the audiences are small. They can range from, 10 people to 50 people, either on Zoom or in fact, we had some of our prop talks were for people over 100 or 200 people by Zoom this last election season. But if you're comfortable and would like, I'm a former educator, so this is part of the reason why I was drawn to the Speakers Bureau, because my career has been educating people. My previous career was educating people in microbiology primarily, But I feel that voting and election issues are very, very important for all of our citizens to understand and be well informed about. So if I will be sending out an invitation to newer members if they're willing to come and explore what Speakers Bureau does. We of course provide training. We before you go off on your own, we ask that you shadow one of the veteran speakers that we have in the league, so that you get a really good idea of exactly what our presentations look like and what you're expected to do, and have a mentor who can help you along the way. So don't feel that you have to do this on your own. We do provide all of the help that you need to be successful with to representing the league and educating our electorate. So with that, Jane, unless anyone has any questions, that's primarily what the Speakers Bureau is about.
That's a great explanation. Thanks. I just have one more slide and then I think we have questions, but this is one more slide we have because it's something we were very proud of last fall. Leading up to the election, every day we had an action item, which was information, links to websites of topics, whether it was a ballot measure or how to vote, questions like that. And it was really I thought a terrific thing that we did. And Jenny Avena, who's pictured here, is the person who was the prime leader behind it. But that was another voter empowerment. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come back to just the general group here. Love to know if you have questions. The whole theme of, voter suppression, voter rights is a very big one in our country, and I think will continue to be. And I'm very proud that the League nationally is so deeply involved in this, and I know has been involved in some legal action. I think in California, we're, it's not as much of an issue, but it's an important piece. So at any rate, love to hear anything that's on anybody's mind.
Jane, as a question screener, it's Beryl. I just wanted to clarify that we don't pick and choose questions as much as we edit them and maybe combine a couple of questions. Make the question worded so that the candidate will answer more than yes or no. So it's that kind of editing that we do. We try not to choose questions, although we usually have more questions than we can ask. But
well, I think the traditional League Candidates Forum in person, we have index cards that are given to everybody. And then the questions, this was in the old days, a year ago. In fact, a year ago, January, I was at one where it was all index cards, completely audience driven, which was great. And we only had to do a little minor editing. But with the Zoom, there are some different issues of making sure there are adequate questions. So it's trying to be fair, trying to be responsible about it all. But
yeah, so the community has a few days to submit questions before a candidate forum.
Right.
And
Yes.
we just have
At
to
least.
get the message out.
Yeah.
And if I could just follow up on that too, sometimes the question screeners make sure that we filter out the gotcha questions, the questions for one candidate that are designed to make them look bad. And doing that helps both the civil discourse to proceed in a productive, useful way. And it also builds the trust on the part of the candidates. And many candidates have told me when I contacted them with Voter's Edge that they may disagree with some of the positions that the League of Women Voters takes, but they have complete confidence in the fairness of the way the candidate forums are run. They know they'll be able to present their side in with the same amount of time as anybody else, and they know they won't be facing the gotcha questions. What makes you think that you can do this job when XYZ? And they also share that confidence in terms of the Voters Edge resource.
Vicki,
Yes.
I have a suggestion for you and Kim.
Yeah.
I was very impressed that we have a slide. I saw the slide in this presentation for Voters Edge. And I got the idea that sometimes as we were moderating the forums, before they start, we have a blank screen up that just has either League of Women or it has the organization that is sponsoring the forum. We don't have a lot of time to explain Voters Edge during the forums or at the beginning. And you know how we're always trying to shorten our introduction? I think instead of just having a blank screen up, perhaps we could have a slide explaining Voters Edge before the forum starts while we're waiting. Because sometimes that blank screen is up there for 5 or 6 minutes until we get started.
We've been playing an intro video, but we haven't been focusing on the Voters Edge to help them. And maybe that would be maybe a slide or staying on the slide after the opening video. That would be a good idea. Thank you.
It's very important, that Voters Edge, and I feel in the past when I was moderating, I didn't have enough time to really explain it.
Well, the information comes out in my communication to the candidates in the printed email, so in the email form. But again, they're rocking and rolling. They're so busy trying to juggle so many balls when they're running for elections and running for office, and so this would be a good thing to help, like you said, just to summarize that so that they understand what they're getting out of participating with it. Yeah.
We did a go around of introductions before you arrived, but since you've been core to our moderating team, could you just say a little about yourself to some of our new people?
Oh, I've been doing the moderating, I think going back about 5 or 6 years. And I joined soon after, and I was a little bit afraid and intimidated, but Vicki and the other members of the team did a very good job of explaining it all. And
Good.
This year was a monumental new learning curve for all of us. Because as Vicki was saying, lots of things happened. We had mishaps. We changed things around after the first few. But I find it to be very rewarding, both for us, for the volunteers at the League, and I think it's great for the candidates. And I think it's a great way. I think we're reaching more people. I think that we have a lot more people participating in some of them than we would if sometimes people had to come out. So I think the discussion has been, am I wrong in saying the discussion has been that we might continue these Zoom forums even after where the gates are open?
It's up for debate because they are successful and being able to have them recorded and be on our events and in the link to our events page. It gets a lot of views after that, so people can go and check out their candidates. So yeah, it's been successful that way.
And the other thing that pertains to voters, the voters forum, is that I did voter registration for, I started back in 2007, I think, doing voter registration down for new citizens downtown. Has been, that wasn't sponsored by the League, but that was a way I got involved. And before that, I was also a delegate, a California state delegate. So I've been involved in politics basically my whole life.
That's great. I was going to say Kim Knox has some of the figures on the number of people who have looked at the videos that we have on our website.
We've got a summary of that somewhere.
Really amazing. So we were really able to reach a lot of people because we recorded it. So that we'll do that going forward. And I think, you know, as libraries open, we'll go back and do more. You know, libraries were sort of where we had a lot of speakers, talks. We used to do naturalization ceremonies we would go to, but I think COVID kind of, you know, put the kibosh on some of that, but we'll get back to it. But we would love to have, I mean, I think the way to engage with the League is to jump into some project, and you know, we'd love to have you. Carol, did you have a question? It sounded like you did.
Yeah, hi. Before or sometime last year, Fran was working on something with the libraries and Zooming voter registration, and I signed up for it, but I didn't ever hear anything. And I think it's because the library is closed. Yeah. So do you know if that's still in the works or?
I think we're all waiting to see when and how libraries reopen.
Okay.
You know, when it's safer to get together in bigger groups. You know, I think the League will be reassessing that in general in the coming
Right.
years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of unknowns, but
Yeah.
you know, I think we'll see. And I assume, Laurie, if there is a recall election or two, that we'll be involved with those in some way too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. We
there
have a
could
very
be-
close relationship with the Registrar of Voters, and we definitely are in close contact with them, and we work with them. And absolutely, if there's a recall election, for sure, the League will be involved. Not even at, I mean, not even only at our level. I presume you're referring to the governor, so that would be a state-wide election. Is that what you're referencing, Jane?
Well, I was actually also thinking there could be a local one too.
Well,
with
okay, I see you. I see what
council.
you're saying. Yeah, we
But
would
it's-
definitely be involved in that as well. And
Yeah.
on to refer to a previous note, I posted in our chat the link to our YouTube channel if you guys want to go back and see some of our previous events, some of our previous member meetings, etc. There, it's in the chat right there if you want to click it.
Oh,
For
So-
anybody who's new or looking things over, I'd encourage you to come to one of our new member orientations. You don't have to be a member to come. You don't have to be a member to come to some of our meetings, and you know, just listen and learn. There's just so much to learn from the League and from, you know, members with incredible experience. And as a friend of mine said, you always get the truth from the League. And I think that really is true, that we have an integrity, we have we're respected, and for good reason, because we're careful.
Right, right. Well, and I want to end on that note because I think that's an important thing to say. That was the same thing that came up in our legislative interviews. Our legislators also appreciate what the League has done and what they stand for, and the fact that they do research and have good educational programs. But I'd also like to remind everybody that this meeting was recorded. So if you have anyone that didn't get a chance to attend tonight and would like to learn more about the Voter Empowerment Committee, you can direct them to our website and our YouTube channel. So thank you all for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next month at our next monthly member meeting. So
Great.
thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
everybody. Thank
And
you, Jane.
I did put the voter empowerment web email address. You know, feel free to email me at that address.
You can save your chat. You'll notice if you go to the chat screen, there's an
screen.
option for you to save it if you want.
voter.empowerment@lwv.org.
So,
Great,
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
all right. Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks all for
you.
attending.
great. Thanks.